I'm proud. But with him, I feel like I can be vulnerable enough to be like, ooh, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry. And then I also, because he's not the kind of person that like holds it over my head.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm sorry. I'll do better.
Yeah. That's good though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not me.
You guys like,
Not me.
fucked up with you.
The other day, John was like,
Welcome to
We Grown.
Question mark?
I'm Moyo.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Jess.
And first things first, what's had you feeling grown?
What had me feeling grown, I think it's just the whole holiday season. The fact that, you just got to keep up with everything. And this year, I just really wanted a break, which isn't too common for me because I'm a very social person and I like being on the go. But I think with just having the new house, trying to host different parties and all, because we did Thanksgiving, we did Christmas, like it was a lot, especially because the house wasn't like there are parts of the house that we don't feel is ready. But we moved forward anyway, and then and John was he is an introvert. And he was like, "Stop it!" Like he's like, "Cancel everything." And I was like, "But we committed. We must." And it was tiring. That's what it
That's
was.
what had you feeling grown.
Yeah,
Okay.
like it's just a realization. Like, all right, well,
You're not young anymore. You can't just.
yeah. I was trying to do parties just like back to back, like Friday, Saturday. It's
Yo.
like let me try and rest on Sunday. Oh, something's happening Sunday. All right, but I just ain't about that life no more. Or I want to be about that life, but my body ain't about that life.
You're not
no
built
more.
for it no more.
Yeah, so that's what had me feeling grown.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Real grown.
Needing rest.
Yeah, that's really what it is. It's like rest. Rest is your friend.
Yeah.
And that is something to learn growing up.
I feel like I'm the opposite of you guys because I rested a whole lot back in the day, and now it's like I can barely take a nap. And now everybody else is taking naps, and I'm like, I miss naps. I be watching people sleep now. But
That's true. Well, also probably what happened, I was off a lot this year because I had way too much leave. And then I was just sitting at home and I think my social meter was low and then I tried to fill it up way too much all at once. And then I just didn't know how to juggle all of that.
Yeah, hosting is a lot different than just attending.
It is definitely.
Yeah, because then you're like, oh, let me make sure this is right. And then like when things change, then it's like, oh shoot, well there goes that. That's all out the window. So
yeah.
Stress. Rest. Decompress.
It's a podcast, it's a video, and more.
Okay. So, segueing into our topic for today, we're going to be reviewing chapter 1 of the book Marriage Be Hard, which is Expectations Be Hard. So essentially talking about the expectations we had of our partners, what we wanted in a partner, what was our negotiables, non-negotiable, like what we thought marriage was going to be like, and like, did we express those expectations? Did we not? Like, what does that look like? And I think we can also talk about our own expectations in friendship too, because I think, if you've seen our season 1, you've seen like our preconceived notions of each other and our expectations. And so we can kind of rehash that now and even kind of like our expectations as we move forward as adults, as grown folk. Yeah, talk about that.
I think before we jump into our own interpretations of everything, just a little background on how the first chapter went. They talked about basically how they started dating, first I love yous, like all those little cutesy moments that we've I would assume us all experience since we're married, but like proposals, weddings, expectations at each of those stages. And then I think they ended the chapter talking about the expectations of moving in together and like that transition. So maybe talk about the steps. We've at this point posted the husband's episode, so we have some idea of how we met and how things are going. But did you have any expectations going into marriage or even going into the dating scene?
Okay, me. Um,
You're the newest.
Oh,
I
that's true.
guess. I
It's
guess.
the most recent.
Should be able to remember.
Yeah. Dating, not really. Which is funny because when Moyo approached me about considering talking to Ronald, I was just like, I'm not gonna say yes, but I'm also not gonna say no. So I didn't really have a lot of expectations. Um, well, let me not say that because, of course you expect to be treated with respect.
Yeah.
I definitely expected that. I expected there to be some rapport where, we're not just, oh, this is somebody off the street. Like, it's like, okay, I know you're friends with Moyo. And we both were. So it's just like, there's some level of you're a decent human being that I could start with. It was just a matter of getting to know him as a person, what made him tick, and just like what drives him, things like that. I know for me, just in dating in general, I had the expectation of like whoever I dated would prefer for them to be a Christian. Well, not prefer. I actually needed them to be, because like spirituality is key to who I am.
Mhm.
I needed them to be respectful of others. Like I have a very people oriented, care about others, like you don't just exist for yourself kind of mindset and view. So I really wanted somebody else that kind of had um, that same kind of drive and, I guess, personality. And even though my husband is an introvert, he very much does care about other people. Like, it's his whole career. And then also, I really, which is funny enough, interesting, that it's harder to find, wanted somebody that was not closed-minded and especially homophobic, because I have so many people in my life who are queer, and I just could not imagine not being able to interact with my friends, have them interact with my friends. My friends feel comfortable around me. My family feel comfortable around me. So that was also a huge, huge, huge thing. That was like a base expectation of mine. And believe it or not, like whether I was on the dating apps or in person, there were a lot of people who got weeded out for that. So those were kind of, I think, my unspoken expectations. But me and him just getting to know each other, talking on the phone a lot, and then when we would meet up in person, like it was just seeing how he was with other people, seeing how he accepted, my likes, my dislikes, even just how I was different with, I don't know, where was I going with that? But I think just him accepting me as a whole person, and him being open to being vulnerable. I think that was something that I also really wanted, but I didn't realize I wanted, was like a man that could be vulnerable. And it's still a process. Even married, like you think, oh, we've been the most vulnerable we've ever been. And then there's another level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then there's another level. Like it's a very, very deep well. And it's not easy to keep peeling back those layers to be vulnerable and be vulnerable again. So yeah, I think those were my expectations. Like the vulnerability, not homophobic, Christian, and open-minded.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. For me, I would say Christian, definitely. Kind. Just
Ooh,
someone that
yeah.
was kind and loving and like I didn't necessarily know exactly what that was, but I knew that that was something I wanted. And then something that I feel like some people now might call childish is I did not want to deal with anybody with kids. And there were people I talked to where I'd be like, you can take me out, but you got kids. Like, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So in dating, that was like a big no for me. Like, I don't want to be nobody's step nothing. I feel like I've experienced it through people in my family, and it never really works the way people think it will. And God forbid something happened to me or my husband and we end up being in that situation, and I wouldn't want people to be like that, but it's still, if that's what it is, that's what it is. I think I was young too, so it was a different, I was in a different place. So marrying someone with kids at the age I was when I got married wouldn't have made any sense to me. In my 40s, everybody probably got kids or been divorced or spouse passed or whatever the case is. So it might be a little different. And I'm praying I don't get in that situation. But yeah, that was something like really high on my list. And then my other kind of petty thing is age. So
yes,
Right.
goodness.
okay, co-signers. Age, yes, age. You could be 2 seconds younger than me. I don't care. Like, no. Next. It doesn't matter. Like, I was very much like, why are you even looking at me? You're a baby.
They
But yeah, really though. So yeah, and I think my husband, he met those are my major things, and he met all of those things. So we were able to move forward, and I got to learn more about him. And I didn't have a lot of rules, but I knew I liked how I was treated around when I was around him, and I liked how I felt when I was around him. And I've always been somebody who trusted myself and like my judgment. So I've never let myself down. So I felt like, okay, if myself or my being is telling me that this is the right person, go with it. Like there are so many things that I felt like this doesn't necessarily line up with what I envisioned for myself as a partner, but it also doesn't feel wrong. So I may have thought, oh, I'm going to marry someone who works in this sort of field or has this many degrees or is Nigerian. Like so many things that I just definitely like, duh, but I also wasn't in the groups where that would even happen. So where was I going to meet this Nigerian PhD person? I mean, let's.
We all were looking like, please tell us more.
I mean, I could have met that person, and I did meet those type of people, but it wasn't. It wasn't what I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Like going back to expectations.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I would go on these dates with these people and feel like this should be it. Like they check off all the boxes that other people kind of have put on me as, you are this type of girl, you need this type of person. And then you see my husband and he's tatted up and he talks a certain way and he doesn't have a degree and like, but it's like, but he out of all of these is more willing to take care of me. Like he will drop anything for me. It doesn't matter. And that's what I was like, I think that's what I wanted. Like I didn't know that, but that's what I wanted. And so your expectations don't always line up with what ends up happening, but sometimes that's it's better. So it was better than my expectations, and I didn't know some of the things that ended up coming with him because I had never experienced it. And I was never treated badly, but he took it to a different level that other people weren't taking it to. Like everything else just felt so casual and so like, we're here. I mean, it is what it is. We do what we do. Everybody's living their life and doing their thing. And we did start off like that. But once he was like, no, I'm serious about you, where guys are not usually the ones to start off the what are we conversation. So it was like, wait a minute, you asking me what are we like? And I'm just like, I'm playing the field type of person, because to me, I was young. Like I always expected that I would be married at a certain age and have kids at a certain age, but I didn't necessarily move like that, which was I don't know what was wrong with me, but I don't know, because I always told people that I'll be like, oh, of course I'll be married at this age, and I'm gonna have my first kid at this age, and I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. And those are things I think I prayed about and I wanted to do, but I was not carrying myself in a way to do those things necessarily. But yeah, I think finding my husband or him finding me, definitely allowed everything to still line up, and some things met my expectations and then some things exceeded my expectations.
That's real.
So I think for me, expectations is hard for me because I don't know if I had expectations. And John and I talk about this a bit because he would always say like, well, I have these expectations and these wants. And I was like, well, I feel like when you're like, things need to be like, you need to meet 10 out of 10. And I was like, well, I feel like you're missing, you still, I could have 9 out of 10 and that's an A. Like, and you missing out on that. So you just having nothing until what? Like, what if you don't end up finding the 10 out of 10? I was like, you couldn't be happy with the 9 out of 10? And not saying, that it has to be that way. Like, because some things are non-negotiable and that's understandable. But I didn't necessarily have this is my ideal situation or look. But after I met John and we moved forward, like I knew what I liked and what I needed.
Yeah.
But I didn't know beforehand that, like, I didn't have I need these boxes checked off. Like, I didn't have the person needs to be, black, white, whatever. I was like, well, a person is going to be the person. And I think because when I was younger, I was much more like free spirited. So then it was kind of like we go with the wind and you kind of see where life takes you. And people that probably feel the same way feel the same way as I do about expectations, probably are in a similar like lifestyle as that, where you kind of let's see where the where the wind blows, where you end up, and then that kind of helps you realize. I guess I'm sure everyone has expectations, but that helps you realize what they were, down the line. Like, because I think we're probably more, once you're there, it's like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
And then when it's gone, it's like, oh,
yeah.
Well, where's that at? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the book, they mentioned expectations when you first move in with someone. Do you guys have any thoughts about like when you first moved in? How did you think it was gonna go, and then how did it end up actually going?
When John and I first moved in, it was different because, well, John's older than I am, and John had lived by himself already. And I've only lived with like my parents. So it was a transition. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad at all. Like, I'm pretty laid back for things. So I like, there are many fights where I just don't fight. I'm like, this is not worth it. The only fight that I fought was, this toilet paper better go behind.
Boy,
That
that's
was
the
it.
battle.
That was it.
That really?
Like, I was like, I really just like, some things I just don't fight about a lot, like, or care about some things.
That's fair, I guess.
I guess because I don't really think about it. Now John, on the other hand, like, it'll eat him a lot. Like, he'll be like, I can't believe you didn't put
Same.
the forks back where I told you to put them back. And I was like, I did put them back. And he's like, no, this one is here. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that.
That's
Like,
me.
I thought I did it right. So what happened is, like, when the forks are gone, like all of the forks are gone, he's like, it's big, little. And then like all of them are gone. And I'm like, it's
Little big.
little, big. And then he's like going off on me. And I'm like, you couldn't have just switched them? And I was like, I feel
No,
like
it's the principal.
I'm was like, just switch them. I was like, I just put them back. Like, I thought I had it right. And he's like, no, like, when you eat, it's from this side. And I was like, I don't even use those forks. But it was just a little adjustment. But it wasn't poor. Like, it wasn't too tough. And I think it might just be because the things that we both cared about, like, one might have cared more about something than the other. And luckily, we just didn't care about the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
When we first moved in together, so before we moved in together, before we got married, I went and stayed with Remarcus in his barracks for, I think it was a day or, I don't know, a few days. Just so we could get all the paperwork and all of that done. And I was looking in that junk like, like, you're not as clean as I remember you being. And it wasn't, he had a roommate who, like, similar to how we had at UMBC, where you have your room and you have your room and then there's a shared bathroom. So his space was clean, but their shared space was filthy. And I was like, the fact that you're letting it be filthy is not giving me good messages, because I'm already here now. Like, I'm here, and I feel like you knew I was coming. You knew in advance I was coming, and you didn't think to clean up. Like, I don't care if it's his mess. Like, I'm coming here to also share this space with you guys, so why wasn't it cleaned? And so my expectations when I was coming in was, he knows I'm coming, so it's gonna be clean. Yeah, it's gonna be clean, and it's gonna be to at least presentable standards. Like, you bring in somebody to your space, make it presentable. And to him, it was like, well, I've been having this battle with this person about me cleaning all the time, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, but you still have to use it. Like, I don't understand. I couldn't fathom, like, using a dirty bathroom. Like, it just didn't add up. And I remember in college when I had a roommate, I think it was freshman year, and they lived on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
And we had that same battle of, I'm always cleaning. And I went off on that child, because why? I think it was one specific time because she left blood, like, on the toilet and stuff.
Yeah, Moyo went off.
I was mad because every other time I would clean up after her and I would just keep eating it and keep eating it. I'm like, this is the last straw. Like, I shouldn't have to deal with this. Like, you seen this. You can't tell me you didn't see this. And so, yeah, I brought that girl in here. Like, none of us are on our period but you. Like, what's going on? And I didn't want to, like, I wasn't trying to embarrass her, but I had already talked to her multiple times about just cleaning up after yourself, and she wasn't. And it was getting on my nerves. Like, yeah, I was so used to being by myself. And, like, I have 3 brothers, but my parents always had me with my own stuff. So I would have my own room, and I would have my own bathroom. I would have my own stuff. And even the times where they would share with me, my brothers will tell you, I'll be like, you peed? It's a drop of pee right here. Clean it. Like, that was me. I don't like it. Yeah. And so, that was my expectation. I'm like, he's a grown man. I don't understand. I'm confused. Is this what I'm getting myself into? But then when we moved into our own space, like, we would spend Saturdays. That was our bonding time, cleaning and playing music and, like, the whole thing. And I was like, oh, okay, he actually is clean, and he would do that. So I don't know if I scared him into doing that or if he was already like that, but either way, it worked out, and I was like, okay, great. And then I think as life happens and things were changing, expectations shift. And we get kind of spoiled in doing things one way and being like, yeah, we're good. We always do it this way. And then life throws something at you and you're like, why aren't you figuring this out? Like, we have to pivot. We have to change. Pivot. We have to do something different. And I don't want to be the one always deciding what that change is. Like, my expectation is for both of us as adults to be like, we're going through a change. So things are going to have to change. And we're both going to make the proper adjustments to do that. And that kind of goes into the next chapter. So we'll talk about that when we get to that chapter, but, like, communicating it. But it's really hard to communicate when you just expect people to do the things that you feel like they should do.
Yeah. I think for us when he first moved in. So he started moving in everything like right before we got married, and then didn't like actually stay together until after we were married. So like didn't really get to live together like that, but it seemed like, oh, he like has an order to his things. He's clean. He knows, sanitation, especially knows about germs, how they spread, all of that. So I'm like, okay, cool. And
The deep sigh.
I think he's similar to Shaun in that I think he's more free spirited about how things are done. And I'm more of a structure kind of person. Like, this is where this goes. This is where this goes. This should go here because this makes the most sense. And mind you, makes the most sense to me, which means it makes the most sense, period. But, but that is not how that works when you're in a couple. And I think it helped that we have like a big enough house where I could have my space and he could have his space. But that still doesn't stop me from feeling the kind of way about how he keeps his space. Like even to this day, like I think right before New Year's, I was in his room because I was like, I don't like the way this is organized.
Oh no.
And
I don't do that.
Oh no.
No. If I can see it, I want to be able to like.
Don't look at it.
No,
that's why I don't go
can't-
to the basement in my
I
house.
can't
I just
not.
feel like I don't have to be down here
No.
because it ain't my business.
But the funny thing is, he does that for my office. Like he doesn't come in my office. He doesn't like really interfere with like my business stuff. But me, I be all up in every room. Every room.
You be setting yourself up.
I do kind of though. I really do, and I realize that. But also, I just think maybe because of how I saw things growing up, that was kind of how my mom was. Like my mom was like, everything has a place, no matter where we are in this house. Even like my dad's space, because my dad had his own like man cave growing up, and she would be in there, and he's like, leave my stuff alone. Like you don't even really need to be down here. And so I think as much as I didn't want to be like that, I ended up kind of having some of that. So I'm still working on it. But yeah, I think just us moving together, just the one thing was just how we do things differently and just the timing. Like I expect to, at the end of the night, all dishes clean, no dishes in the sink. And he's just like, get to it when we get to it. And I'm just like, no. No.
We go through that too. Because
Yeah.
John's like, the dishes need to be cleaned at night. And I'm like, well, why can't I wash these 3 dishes in the morning? Because I wake up first. Like, they're going to be done. And he's like, because they need to be cleaned at night. And I'm like, not a battle I feel like fighting. So I would just clean them at night.
I will say that I used to have the battle of cooking. Like, why can't you just cook sometimes? Like, you know how to cook. But recently, I've been taking the full advantage of him cleaning. Back in the day, I would be down there helping him clean. So I'm like, I cooked and I gotta help clean and da 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 da. And it's like, you don't have to help me clean. Just leave. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do that. Let me just leave. So now I take the full advantage of, don't go back down there. Let him clean it. Like I was being nitpicky about, well, you didn't sweep or you didn't wipe this down and you didn't do this. So he has a better understanding of how I clean. So I feel more comfortable being like, you do it and I get to rest because I did all the cooking.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit better. And then if I do see something that he missed, I try not to be like, you missed this. I just clean it.
Yeah.
That happened with us when we were moving. I mean, like, I'm usually just on the go. So I'm like, all right, I need to do this, 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 and this. So I start doing something like, I'm going to build this thing. And then John's like, well, now I have to help you build it. And then he's mad because he's helping me build it. He's like, I just wanted to watch TV.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't ask you to help me. Like, I was going to do this by myself. And he's just upset. And I'm like, go watch TV. And he's like, but you're going to say, well, why didn't you help me? I was like, I'm not, because I didn't want your help. I didn't ask.
It's hard to accept that, though. It's hard to really believe that somebody's saying, don't help me, and they don't mean it. Because I will say, don't help me, but help me. Like, still help me. So that's why it's hard to think that people are saying what they mean if you're not a type of person that says what you mean all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, if I want your help, I'm going to ask you for your help. I was like, I don't need your help putting this thing up. But now that you're here, help me then. And don't help me with an attitude.
Dang, you
So-
can't dictate how I help you. Dang. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I also had a roommate before me and him lived together, and I had a roommate for like years. And then she moved out, and I lived by myself.
Mhm.
And so I think I just got really comfortable with just my own rhythm and how I did things. So I think that also kind of played a part in some of that, like, this is how I do things, like, down to the point of, like, I clean this cup with this part of the sponge or this kind of sponge. You cannot do that with a brush, or you cannot use this to clean that. And it's just like, okay, well, you do the dishes then. And I'm like, no, just clean them the way I would clean them. And so it was stuff like that where it's just like, we do things very differently. And I feel like I see things differently and he sees things differently. But I think just accepting, like you said, what's a battle and what's not.
Mhm.
And then when you're open-minded about it, like, I have found that I've relaxed a lot more when I'm just like, okay, I trust that he can do that. Because even when it comes to, like, setting up furniture, like, I used to be like, okay, I gotta help you. And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't need your help.
Yeah.
I can do it myself. And I'm like, but no, you're gonna need my help. It's just like, no.
Yeah. I don't, we haven't had the setting up things issue, but we have had the something comes and you want to do it immediately when we have other things to do. And my husband is like king of drop everything and get this new thing put together. Like, bruh, no, do the other things first. And then if you feel like staying up, feel free. Like, knock yourself out. But we have other things in place. And he's so into, if I say, hey, what can you do X, Y, and Z on this day, he'll take that as, let me just do it now. I didn't ask you to do it now. Now, when I ask you to do stuff now, do you do it now? No. So let's not do the thing I asked you to do later now. But yeah, it's always that battle of, do you fight it or do you just let them do the thing they need to do? Because everything will get done eventually.
I can't do the eventually. I need the structure of when I say or when I plan to do. So I get it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm the
It's
other
it's
one.
it's
Like, I'm on the other
expectations.
side.
Yeah.
John has the
He's us and you're
yeah,
our
and
spouse.
I'm like,
Yeah.
but this is challenging. Like, if I could just do it when I want to do it or the way I want to do it, we won't have any issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's right a lot, and I'm
Thank
not.
you. Say that for all of them. That's all of them saying that. Shaun is
Like-
just the spokesperson.
Yeah, I mean, but then sometimes he's not.
It's not true.
It's not often though.
Yeah. So like, and then sometimes it's like I laugh when you were talking about these cups need to be washed this way, and yada, because
Yes.
John's like, oh well, this pot has to be washed this way. So I'm like, you know what? I'll do it. So then I do it, and then I'm like, did you do this? It's like, because I do it correctly every time. I do it the way you said, and he's like, oh, it was me. And I'm like, excuse me. So it's always
Fair.
fun to do that, but
Yeah.
I take advantage when I can.
I do eat those. Like sometimes it be me.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
okay.
Right. Okay. That's how I want to be.
I actually
like,
would
okay.
be apologetic though. I'll be apologetic. Like, my bad.
Will
But
you?
no, I really do. I'm funny enough in our relationship. I am okay apologizing. Like, I'm okay with being vulnerable enough to apologize. I don't think that's been the case in all of my past relationships because I'm proud. But
Yeah.
with him, I feel like I can be vulnerable enough to be like, ooh, I made a mistake. I'm very sorry. And then I also, because he's not the kind of person that like holds it over my head.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm sorry. I'll do better.
Yeah. That's good though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not me.
You guys like,
Not
I
me.
fucked up with you.
The other day, John was like, Shaun, we pay bills now. Turn off the light. And I was like, you right. I'm going to turn off the light. As soon as that light be on, I'd be like, John, we pay bills now. Turn off the light. It was to the point, so it kept happening. And I would just be like, John, turn off the light. And then his mom was like, man, Shaun really has a thing about these lights. And I was like, no. It's not me that has a thing about the lights?
That's funny.
I was like, I left one light on. That's all. So we get a good laugh out of that.
That's weird.
It's usually just for fun. It's just because I don't be caring. Like that light be on.
I care. I care too much. And part of caring too much is my new year of release. Like, release some things. Like, let some things go. And I will continue to work on that. It's still early in the year, but it definitely gives you a lot more peace to not just place expectations on people who are not yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you're outside of me. You don't know what I'm thinking. And I can't just expect you to do things the way I do things just because I feel like it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think we have that conversation often together about just kind of recalibrating. Like, okay, I am not the only person here with the ideal this. Like, we are supposed to build this ideal together. So what does that ideal need to look like? And that usually happens when I feel like I've gotten frustrated with something, or I notice that he's like kind of just, okay, I'll just do this myself kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, let's recalibrate. Like, what does that ideal look like? What do you need? What do I need kind of thing?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, all of this. I mean, a lot of it just stems back to communication, which is mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
Because communication really is key. It's not it's a learning thing. I mean, you do it so much, and you have to keep doing it. In different forms, you have to figure out the way everybody likes to communicate. Sometimes you got to communicate in different ways, and then it's just making sure it's understood, it's heard, and it's listened to. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any expectations within our friendship? I have one, which is just that it's not one-sided.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that could be with anything. Like, we've talked about it before, where if I don't feel like I'm being reached out to as much, or if I feel like you're not necessarily carrying your weight, because just like in marriage, like our friendship, sometimes I'm going to do more in this season and you're going to do less, but it has to kind of be a cycle of, okay, this is what you're going through. We understand that this is what's happening. So we pick up some of that slack, but not I'm picking up 100% of everything. I mean, I guess it could be 100% sometimes, because I think, like, when I had my kids, there were times where I felt like I was doing zero, and my friends had to basically carry me along. And it may not have been long seasons of that. But I would still try, like, make sure I'm staying in touch, make sure I'm not just like disappearing. And then I would be the one getting frustrated more, like, y'all know I'm in this situation, y'all supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, but you guys still being like, you're right, like, okay, let's pick up some of the slack there. That's my main, like, expectation. And I don't think it's not I don't know what word to use, but it's out there. Like, everybody knows that that's an expectation of mine. It's not something that I'm just expecting and you guys don't know about it.
Yeah. I think definitely that. I think that for me, it's definitely the reciprocation. And I try not to think of it in terms of like not record keeping, but also that, but scorekeeping, where it's just like, okay, well, I did this, or I paid this, and I do this, and I do this, and then how much have you done in comparison to what I've done? Because again, like, seasons change, things happen, people grow, people experience a lot of different life changes, and that can affect them in a myriad of ways. So, like you said, like, it's not always going to be 50-50. But I think another expectation, and I think I've kind of said it, we've kind of talked about it, is like that vulnerability, like needing my friends to be a safe space where I can share what's going on, and that they can also share, and like not in a I got the answers kind of thing. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know either. But we can
Mhm.
sit in this, you
Yeah.
know, and we don't know. We'll keep checking in. We'll be there. We'll be there to support you in whatever kind of way, but not in a, okay, well, I know what to do, or I have the solution, or I'll see you later kind of thing, you know? I
Yeah.
think the vulnerability, it has been key in like my closest relationships, where I don't feel like whatever I tell you is going to be held over my head or used against me or turned against me in any kind of way.
Yeah. I think that now that we're married, there might be less, I don't know if it's less vulnerability, but it's more thought, at least on my part. Like, I put more thought into what I tell my friends, because there's still that I'm trying to protect my relationship.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, I used to tell y'all literally everything. So how do I then make that shift to be like, okay, I can tell them the things that apply, like that are directly me, but not exposing my spouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So that has been kind of a hard transition, because I'd be like, who am I supposed to tell this to? I can't tell him.
Girl!
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think our spouses are also, well, at least me and Jess, our husbands, they talk to some degree. So knowing that also, even when we're telling each other things, that there's an expectation for me that you might tell your spouse. Like, unless I'm saying don't tell them this, I just expect that they'll probably talk about it. Like, I tell my husband everything and we talk about it, but it's not necessarily a negative way. They know that whatever our pillow talk is stays between us.
Mhm.
And so it's just a little bit more tricky, because now it's more people involved.
Mhm.
And just trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
do
Yeah, I
it.
mean, it's a balancing game.
It
I mean,
really
it really
is.
is. I mean, it's challenging. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to do. It just takes, I don't want to say practice. I mean, because it's just something that you have to, you keep doing um over and over again and over and over again.
Because it's not
Yeah.
like you can like go to your spouse about everything. Like, oh, is it okay if I? Oh, is it okay if
Yeah.
I? So it's like it is definitely like a feeling out kind of thing. And I think I know my husband well enough to know like what he's okay with sharing and what he's not okay with sharing.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is awkward and it's weird to navigate that, especially for me. Like, I think we're all, I guess, still navigating that in some sense. But yeah, I think I typically just go with sharing what's going on with me, since I feel like that's the main part or core of our relationship. And then there are some times we're just like, married person to married person. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know about this. And I think I will say that for me, having community with y'all, as far as like married people that have been married for longer than we have, has been helpful, because older folks might just be like, oh, we brush it under the rug,
Yeah.
or oh, that's
Mhm.
not a big deal. And it's just like, but it's a big deal to us. And
Yeah.
In
like,
this moment, yeah.
yeah, like, and I can't deal with people minimizing what we might be experiencing. So I think, yeah, having community, like, even if you don't have the answers, but just the relatability of, oh man,
Mhm.
yeah, that sounds hard,
Yeah.
or we've been through that, this is how we got through it. I don't know if that's how, that would work for
Yeah.
you all,
Yeah.
but we understand. So I think that also like helps with our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
And we have older couples too, but I feel like now that we have younger, because we've always said, okay, do we have a married couple friends that are our age that we feel like we can go to with stuff? And it is still hard, because we're on we've passed some things that you guys are coming, well, not you guys, mainly Jess and Ron are coming through. And I feel like we don't necessarily relate to you and John's relationship in the same way.
Mhm.
So it's like, well, I don't know if I can talk to Shaun about that. Like, most of the time we need to be talking to John and we don't have the access to John we probably could reach out to him, but we just don't have that relationship already.
Yeah.
And talking to you would just be like, agree with our husbands, and that's not what we want. So,
Exactly.
Like-
so we don't really be like, don't even talk to Shaun, because
Yeah, he already gonna be, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think, I don't know. It's just, we're still figuring it out. And there are expectations there, and I feel like everyone, the main thing is to just make sure that we're still being sensitive to everyone and where they are, and not exposing each other, because we tell each other way too much. But I feel like I'm confident enough to know that, okay, it's as far as it's gonna go, it's to your spouse. I hope, and that's my expectation.
Yeah. There's the trust there, and I think that's been what's been foundational and key in our relationship, is there's that trust. Like, I'm not nervous or hesitant to tell you something because you haven't betrayed my trust in a way that's just like, dang, I can't trust her with nothing, or I can't trust him with I can't tell him nothing because he gonna be out here in the streets telling my business, kind of thing. So I definitely think that's something invaluable in our relationship, is trust.
I think the other thing that I it's kind of friendship and relationship, because now that I have someone that's not you guys, like if I want to rant about y'all, now I have someone to rant about y'all too.
Yeah.
Because
listen, I ran about that daggone video to my husband, and I was like, I feel so much better.
And I mean, it's a real thing. Like before, it was like, okay, now we got to actually face each other. Now I can get it off my chest and move on. Like it's not that deep.
My husband ain't heard no more. I talked about it.
But it was so much harder to have to talk about it with each other before we could get back to normal. And I feel like now it's like, I'm good. Like, it's not
like
that
you have an
deep.
outlet now.
Definitely think that that's important. Like, we still talk through the issue, but it's one of those things, like, and they talk about it in the communication chapter. I'm gonna kind of sneak it in there, but people have different approaches. Like, I'm the kind of person, like, if there's an issue that happens right then and there, like, I want to talk about it as soon as possible, but I also still need time to process it. But you're gonna feel that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let you know that I'm not okay because I'm still trying to process why I'm upset. And then there are other people who are just like, okay, take a step back, go to our corners, talk about it later. So, like, having those different styles within ourselves, where I think Moyo's definitely more of a, we gonna talk about it right now. And I'm like, I need to process my thoughts. I don't necessarily want to, like, take 2 days, but I'm gonna process my thoughts. And if it does take me 2 days, still give me my 2 days. So, like, having my husband to just be like, bruh, this is what happened, and he's just like, I can see how that hurt your feelings. And I'm just like, see, somebody understands me.
I mean, Marcus does have to be like, he loved the tea, so
he's
ready.
Yeah, he loving the tea. Husbands be loving the tea.
So it's always like, but they know that we are like we are solid.
Yeah,
they like, you doing all this talking, but y'all still gonna be on the phone tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yes, we are. We are gonna be on the phone tomorrow, but I'm gonna still talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's also, I think the other thing, I feel like I've said also a billion times. Anyways, it's. I also don't feel like I want to make my. I don't want to make my husband feel like there's anything bad about you guys either. So it's still the balancing act of, are there limits to what I can tell him about you guys? And I don't think there are. Like, he never feels like, oh, you don't like your friends.
Person.
Yeah. Like, you guys aren't doing things that are so terrible. If y'all did, he gonna be like, hey, no.
Yeah.
And
I think it helps that we have some sort of relationship with each of our spouses, that they have an understanding of who we are enough to be like, okay, my spouse is tripping, or, maybe this was just, a situation where there was a misunderstanding kind of thing.
So. I mean, I think it helps that we do stuff together, as couples as well. So everybody can see those different dynamics and how everybody, responds and acts with each other.
Y'all saw us playing that game. One game. Yeah.
It'd be like that.
Do we want to do a quick what we thought about the chapter in general?
Ooh. Oh, so we're using the book as a guide for topics and conversation, just to help our podcast come along. It's not a book review in the end. Like, we're not going to go into this is exactly what each chapter was about, and here's a quote. I mean, we might do a quote, and that might help us to continue the conversation. It might be something that, we want to address, but it's not going to be, this is their book.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're trying to do our own. They have their own thing. We're trying to do our own thing. We appreciate and value what they did, and we want it to help us become better people.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's good conversations, and the book definitely has good conversation. And the way they wrote the book is like a volley between the two of them.
Mhm.
Like one writes a section, the other one writes a section, so you can see both of their perspective. And that's kind of how we do our podcast. We all give a completely different perspective to whatever the topic is.
Yeah.
And if we had to like literally do a review of the chapter, that would make this even longer. We definitely do want people to read along so that you can kind of get an idea of what the framework was. But don't expect us to.
We're not spoiling it.
Yeah,
for
we're
you.
not spoiling it at all. We're just doing general. These were the hot topics, and we're going to talk about it as it relates to us and our friendship and our marriages.
Yeah.
So that's all we got for this week. This episode?
Yeah, this episode.
This
Because it's
episode.
about to be 2 weeks.
Right. So hope you like, comment, subscribe, tell people,
Share, yeah.
share, whatever you
Share,
got to
yeah.
do. So
Mhm.
see you next time.
Bye.
Love y'all.